Jared here with CarBuzz.com, and today I'm reviewing a 2019 Mercedes-Benz E-Class. Although this is no normal Mercedes E-Class, this is the fastest, most aggressive Mercedes E63 AMG. This is the big boy. If you have been begging your spouse to let you buy a sports car, but she doesn't want to let you sacrifice all of that practicality, and you still need a four-door sedan, but you also want one that's incredibly fast and powerful, this is the car for you. And if you want to see the best deals on the 2019 Mercedes E63, be sure to click right here or check the link in the description. And before we get this out on the road, I'm going to show you what's under the hood, because that's what really makes an AMG an AMG. The main reason why you're going to want to buy the E63 over a lesser E43 or E300 model is this beast that sits under the hood. This is a 4-liter twin turbocharged V8 engine. It's actually a hot V, meaning that the turbos are housed in here, in the V of the engine. That's going to get you better throttle response and better responsiveness overall. And this engine in particular is used in a lot of different AMG products right now, including the AMG GT sports car, their flagship. But those cars only produce anywhere from 460 to 570 horsepower, whereas this bad boy produces 603 horsepower and 627 foot-pounds of torque, going out through a 9-speed automatic only through all-wheel drive. There's no rear-wheel drive model available. In Europe, they do sell a regular E63, which is about 560 horsepower, but we only get these S models in America. And another special thing about this engine is AMG, the full AMG products, not the 43s, but the 63s, have a one-man, one-engine policy, which means that this engine was hand-assembled by one man alone. Sebastian Ziegler in this case. Sebastian, I really enjoy your work. And coming around here, this front grille is different than what we've seen on a couple of other recent AMG products. The AMG GTs, the S-Class, they've all got that new Pan America front grille. This one has the old grille. I actually prefer it. I love the way the E-Class looks of all the AMG cars. And now all we have to do is get it out on the road to see how this beast feels from behind the wheel. So let's see what 603 horsepower feels like on the road. Well, actually, right now, I'm not using all 603 horsepower because, as you'd expect, it's really difficult to find a road where you can actually go through and use all of that tremendous power. So here on my central screen, I can actually have it show how much horsepower and how much torque I'm using at any given time. Right now, I'm coasting through this corner using 0 horsepower. I get on the gas a little bit. Oh wow, I used 85 of the 603 horsepower there. I really don't feel like I'm getting the most out of this AMG car. And that's sort of the problem with a lot of these. Unless you live in Germany where you've got the Autobahn and you can take it up to its 186 mile-an-hour top speed, you do start to feel a bit silly driving this car some of the time. And it'll just work. It's fine. Even when you're not using it for purposes of pure speed, it's still a really nice car. It's still an E-Class. It'll shut down 4 of those 8 cylinders when you're not using them, so it's really nice and quiet even when we're driving along. You'll start to notice the suspension is stiffer than what you'd get on a normal E-Class, but it's not too bad. It's an air suspension and it is adjustable based on the drive modes, and you can adjust it independently. There's 3 modes. There's normal, harsh, and then a little harsher. And the thing that I'm noticing the most with the stiffness isn't really because of the suspension. The suspension is great, keeps it flat even through the corners, but you get a lot of road noise and a lot of road feel from these Michelin Pilot Super Sports. They're really loud, especially over chewed up pavement. You can probably even hear them now in the cabin. It's a little disconcerting in what is otherwise a really quiet and really comfortable cabin, but it doesn't distract from the situation too much. I'm right now driving in comfort mode, and the engine, you don't really even hear it. And even if I go ahead and accelerate just a little bit, even if I put my foot really down into it, this 9-speed automatic doesn't even really need to feel the need to shift. It just has so much power and so much torque on demand at any given time that even when you're driving around in comfort mode, as I'm doing now and I've done most of the week, it's still incredibly good over roads when you're driving at high speed. The only time I've ever noticed a problem is at low speeds over really rough pavement. And the brakes, I'm gonna go ahead and hit those. Oh, whew. Yeah, these are really good brakes. They're about $9,000 carbon ceramic brakes. I wouldn't spend the money on them, but you know, hey, I guess if you're gonna track your $100,000 mid-size sedan, go ahead. So now I've come to a stop, which gives me a perfect opportunity to show you launch control. So the way this works, super easy. I just put it in either Sport Plus or race mode. I went for race mode because you might as well. You just put your foot all the way down on the brake and then just put your foot all the way down on the gas, release the brake, and the car will go. I'll show you that now. Whoo-wee! It keeps pulling. All of that 600 torque is available at 2,500 RPM to 4,500, so it's available almost immediately. The throttle response is like nothing else. You put your foot down and instantly, no matter what gear you're in, you get power. It sounds great. It's a little muted from this cabin just because it's such a nice, well insulated cabin, but you hear plenty of it, and they be sure to pump back engine noise back in there for you so you can really hear the grunt from that 4-liter twin turbo V8. So that 0 to 60 run, you can actually pull up a little display here on the main screen, and it'll calculate your quarter mile times, your 0 to 60 times, all of that sort of stuff. Mercedes estimates 0 to 60 at about 3.4 seconds. This, I've managed to do it in a little over 3.1 seconds. That is supercar speed in a big, large four-door sedan. As we go and turn it around, I can show you the steering rack is really short. Not a lot of turn lock to lock, to be honest. It gives you great feedback from the wheel without being super uncomfortable. This is a car that'll still drive itself on the highway. You push some buttons over here, you turn on the adaptive cruise control, and basically this car will steer, it'll brake and accelerate on the highway. It'll drive itself basically like a normal E-Class or an S-Class. It just happens to have 603 horsepower, making the experience incredible. I'm holding this nice AMG wheel. They've redesigned this pretty recently. It's in most of the new AMG cars. It has this nice metal front to it, these awesome metal paddles you can hear when I pull them. This 9-speed shifts exactly when I want. A lot of people might say, well, you want a manual transmission? Absolutely not. A manual transmission would not make this car better. I do not have a problem with this 9-speed automatic. It works great in traffic. It works great when you want to do aggressive things like that, when you downshift. AMG just provides one of the best soundtracks imaginable right now in the business. And in race mode, this car holds on to gears exactly as long as you want. It'll shift automatically, or you can take manual control with the paddles. Race mode is awesome, although not exactly easy to drive it around for long periods of time on race mode. I've found myself going into Sport Plus. I think Sport Plus offers the right balance of aggression without being too crazy. Because when you put it in race mode, you'll leave from a traffic light and it kind of holds on to second gear. It's real loud. Sport mode and Sport Plus mode will kind of realize that you're still maybe driving it normally. So what it will do is it'll act as a normal automatic. Maybe it'll be a gear or two lower, if that. But when you want it, oh yeah, the throttle response just comes on like an anvil. And this is still a really big car. It weighs about 4,500 pounds. So it's not as nimble as sort of the smaller cars in the AMG range. You've got the AMG GT, the C63, or competitors like the M3. But what it does do is accelerate like almost no other vehicle, four-door or otherwise. I can only think of a handful of vehicles that exist in the world right now that'll keep pace with this. You've got the Tesla Model S. I've driven that. That absolutely will keep up with one of these, but doesn't offer the same kind of driving feel that this does. You've got the BMW M5, which is all new. I'm going to be driving that soon, and so I'll report back as to how that compares with this. But The M just doesn't sound as good as this. I think the AMG is a prettier car. I definitely think it's the better sounding car. I prefer the engine in this, and BMW's come a long way with their interiors, but I prefer this interior, except for these seats. These AMG sport seats, they gotta go. They're $2,500. I can't even imagine why you'd waste the money on them. They do have heating and ventilation, which is okay, like they have heating and ventilation, but you're losing massage seats. This is a big, comfortable E-Class. I want big, comfy seats. I want them to massage me. That would make this pretty much perfect. So I really can't find too many faults with this car. You may think it's too stiff, but if you think it's too stiff, you're probably shopping for the wrong E-Class, and you should probably be looking at either an E300 with the 4-cylinder or the E43 with the V6 engine is also a really nice alternative. Now I'm going to go ahead and pull over so I can show you this beautiful interior of the E-Class. Alright, so now that I'm pulled over, I can show you this beautiful interior of the 2019 Mercedes E63 AMG. So it all starts off with this lovely steering wheel. It's different than what you'll find in a regular E300. A lot of other AMG products also have this wheel. I really like the redesign here. It's metal on the front here for all of the buttons. All of them are really easy to access, and you have these nice perforated grips on either side. Really great when you rest your hands on it. You also have these metal paddles with up and down written on them. They feel great, like a trigger on a rifle when you pull them. They are really fun to play with when you're in sport mode or anything like that. Over here we have, you can see so much carbon fiber. This is of course an option. You can get regular wood and other materials here. I'm not a huge fan of carbon fiber normally, but I think on an E63 it does look pretty cool. I have also seen what this interior looks like with wood, with this sort of unpolished wood. I think that's really beautiful as well. So it kind of just depends on what aesthetic you're going for. If you want to present more of a luxurious cabin, you go for wood. If you want more of an aggressive sporty cabin, you can opt for this more expensive carbon fiber. And I'm sure the thing that you've been looking at the most is this dual screen setup. It is actually 2 screens. There is a gap between the 2, but it's flush in the dashboard, so it does look like you just have 1 screen here. And the way that you can control these 2 screens is fairly interesting. So here on the steering wheel, we have these 2 little black knobs that just look like buttons, but they are oh so much more than that. What they do is they actually function a bit like an old BlackBerry. You can swipe them up, down, side to side to control different aspects of this center screen. So as you can see here, I have my trip set on the right, so I can show you things like my range, my fuel economy, and if I just move it over, now I can adjust the right side. I had it showing boost, horsepower, all of those sort of things. I can have it show my tire temperatures. I can have it show a map. On that side of it, I can just have it show the date and the day. Really customizable here. You can have so many different things, especially when you factor in the heads-up display. You can have so many different amounts of information. You can have your radio here, you can have your map here, you can have your map here, you can have your radio here. You're gonna find what works best for you. I happen to like this sporty layout with the speedometer and tachometer in the middle, although if you want a more classically styled gauge, you can change it. I can go here into designs and I can pick a more classic layout where I have the speedometer on one side and the tachometer on the other. And that doesn't change how customizable it is either. I can still have this gauge show my G meter, I can have it show my boost, I can have it show whatever lap I'm on. It's set to the Hochheim rim in Germany right now. I don't know why it's set there, but it is. I can even have it show the map in this little circular display. I think that is extremely cool, very James Bond-esque, that it just kind of puts the map in the ring there. Really really cool. Moving over to this display, so we have another one of these little BlackBerry style controllers, and that can also be used to control this screen. So if I go ahead and push home, you can see all of my home menu, radio, navigation, all of those sort of functions. I can go down into favorites, where it has all of the things I can use most. I've been playing a lot with the ambient light color in this car. Really silly function, but it's really fun to play with. It gives you all of these options. You can see the mood lighting here. It's, you know, daylight now, but at night this really starts to come alive. I have it set to purple, which I think is really cool. Of course, we're driving a red car, so I can have it set to red. You can even have different effects. You can have it be multicolor. You can have it so that when you adjust the climate control, when you make it hotter, the lights on my side will turn red. If I have it go colder, the lights on my side will turn blue. Just a super silly, fun thing to play with, and that is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to this setting. You have so many things that you can play with here. I can go into the track pace, which it'll give me the alert that you're only supposed to use this on a racetrack. It'll time your drag races, your quarter mile, all of those sort of things. You can set it to a racetrack like a Ascari or the Hochheim Ring, and it'll tell you what your lap times are. So there's so many other things you can do here. The radio is incredible. We have the upgraded Burmester audio. It's one of the best systems I've ever tested. It is an optional extra, but I think it's an optional extra that is worth selecting on this car. Moving down, we have physical buttons for everything. So if you're phobic of this type of control, you can have physical buttons for your climate control. And I really like how Mercedes made that redundant here. So you can control all of this on the screen, or you can just grab your fan speed, all of that real quick, pull up the menu to see how your climate control is active at the moment. Down here, we have all of those buttons you see on the main menu, your nav, radio, media, telephone, and the car settings. All of those are also mirrored down here. So if you just want quick access to navigation, you can grab that here with a nice analog clock in the middle, just because it's fancy. Here we have the AMG logo, because of course we're driving an AMG, and we have some nice storage in here. Not the biggest cup holders in the world, but they get the job done. And we do have a wireless charger in here. Not the best access. You can't really grab your phone easily once it's in there, but it's there if you do have wireless charging enabled on your phone. And the way I showed you up here on the wheel is just one of 3 ways that you can control this screen. We do also have this rotary style knob. This has been on Mercedes cars for a long time. You can twist, you can bump it in up, down, left, or right to control it. Or we also have this little thing here. You may be wondering what that is. That is also a touchpad, so you can swipe that in different directions to control this main screen. And so you basically pick which one you like to use most. I prefer being able to do it all on the wheel. I don't even have to take my hands off the wheel to control this while I'm driving. Really nice feature. Some people might like the knob, some people might like this little touch thing. I like how Mercedes, some people might say it's a little redundant to have 3 different ways to control this, but I think it's great. It gives everybody a little something to control it the way they like. There's also plenty of buttons surrounding it. We have our button to put it in manual mode. For the transmission, the 9-speed automatic, we have our suspension button. All of these things can be adjusted regardless of the drive mode, so you can put it in Sport or Sport Plus suspension mode. We have the loud exhaust, so you can push that, it makes it a little louder. You have your start, stop, defeat, and you also have your different camera modes. So I'm going to go ahead and show you those by triggering the car into reverse. So I'm going to get this beautiful 360-degree camera, really high resolution. I'm going to get the backup camera by default. If I turn the wheel, you're going to see the trajectory lines, really cool. They do guide you extremely well, but I can change the angle of that camera. I can have just the rear view. I can have the sides if you're worried about parallel parking and you don't want to curb a wheel, you can have that. If you're pulling up to a spot, you can have the front camera, or you can have the whole thing be the front camera. Very easy, and of course this will park itself. So if you need to parallel, if you need to pull into a regular spot, the car will do that all by itself, even if you can't. And this interior is great, save for the one option I don't think you should go for are these AMG sport seats. They're $2,500. They're really harsh. They're really stiff. They do have heating and ventilation, which is kind of nice. You can control all of that here. But This is a big comfy car and I want a big comfy seat. For less than the price of these sport seats, you can get massaging leather seats, and I've been in those. They are bolstered still, so they're not too like sporty like these, but they are extremely comfortable if you're on a long road trip. So now I'm going to get out of these torture chamber seats and into the back seats where I can talk to you about what it's like in the second row. This is what a Mercedes E-Class seat should feel like. So even if you do get the aggressive sport seats in the front, the rears are still nice, cushy, comfy leather. So if you sit back here, you're actually going to be the most comfortable person in the cabin. Rear seat legroom is pretty darn good, pretty comparable for this size. I can sit behind myself pretty easily, although I'm not that tall. Back here, we don't have too many of the rear seat options. You can get things like sunshades that go up and down. You can get a shade for the rear window as well. Ours doesn't really have too much of that, so there's not too much to talk about back here. I do have two basic air vents. You can also get climate control back here. This is just a basic twist to open air vent. And I do have two charging ports back here, a household 115 volt and a normal car 12 volt outlet. That's about it. No USBs back here. I do have an armrest, nothing too special about it. There's some storage in here, and I've got these cool pop-out cup holders if I need to hold a drink. Now let's go ahead and talk about the trunk, which of course you can fold these seats to allow for more space. All right, so around back, I think the E-Class is also a really handsome car, not super wild stylistically by any stretch of the imagination. You can also get this as a wagon. That is what I would do if I was in this situation. It's going to be harder for you to resell it, but your resale value is actually going to stay a little bit higher. Those wagons have been holding their value a lot better. This is still pretty cool. We have the carbon fiber deck lid spoiler on the trunk here. We have the carbon fiber diffuser. Those are all optional, and we have these nice AMG exhaust tips, although the real exhaust tips are behind here. These aren't actually the tips. Doesn't stop them from sounding incredible. Now I'm going to go ahead and open it. We've got a power operated trunk. Reveals 13 cubic feet of storage. Pretty good. I can fit a ton of stuff back here. It's not the best in the segment by any stretch. You can pull these tabs to fold down and get more storage space if need be. And Mercedes, at least on my tester, gives you this handy little crate. It says Mercedes on it and everything, and you can fold it up, and it has a nice little storage spot below the trunk where you can place it. And before we go ahead and price this car out, it is expensive, by the way, I did notice something that does come with your purchase, your access to the AMG private lounge. And I went ahead and read about this. It doesn't say where the private lounge is. I might try and stop by at some point. Maybe I'll register this as my car and I'll see and drop by, because this sounds like a really cool place to hang out. I'll go ahead and try that later, but for now, let's just go ahead and price out our 2019 E63 S. So base, you're going to start off at a little over $106,000, although ours comes in at a eye-watering $137,000. Oh, that's a lot, and I think there are a lot of ways that you can get rid of those, some of those options. We've got about $1,000 for paint. We've got $2,800 worth of carbon fiber. That's just on the inside. We've got those carbon ceramic brakes that I talked about. Those are almost $9 grand. I think you can forego those. We've got the carbon fiber engine cover for $1,500. Unless you open your engine constantly, that's kind of a waste of money as well. $1,700 for these 20-inch forged wheels. I think they look great. I'd actually keep those. We've got the $1,200 AMG Performance exhaust system. Yeah, you gotta keep that. You've got the head-up display, that's pretty cheap for $990. You've got those AMG Performance seats for $2,500. Yeah, get rid of those, burn them, get rid of them, never look at them ever again. You've got a ton of carbon fiber elements, the mirrors, the trunk lid, $1,700. You've got the acoustic comfort package, that increased cabin insulation, windshield inside with acoustic and heat absorbing membrane. That's about $1,100. I would get that. It actually makes the cabin a little more quiet on the inside. You've got exterior carbon fiber, more of it, almost $3,000, and driver assistance for about $2,200. If you're a good driver, you don't really need that. You can cut this down to a little over $110,000 if you're careful with your options. All right, so wrapping up on the 2019 Mercedes E63, I think there are very few cars in existence that can really compete with this car on an even footing. With the Germans, you've got the Audi RS7, although that's a couple of years old at this point. You've got the new M5, that's probably the closest competitor, and that mainly just boils down to whether or not you're a BMW fan or a Mercedes fan. On the American side, you've got the CTS-V, which is more powerful than this, but it's rear-wheel drive, so it can't really put its power down as well, although the CTS-V is a very good driver's car with that Corvette motor in the front. There's also the Tesla Model S. Of course, that's very different entirely because you're getting an electric car rather than one with an internal combustion engine, although a Tesla will keep up with this off the line. If you are getting onto higher speed stuff, there's really not going to be much that can keep up with this. So if you want something that's fast, practical, does everything, do anything, this is an incredible car to buy. So it is going to receive a ranking from me of must buy. I don't think there are many cars that can compete with it, and among the ones that can, this is among my favorites. And if you've liked this video and you'd like to see more, be sure to subscribe to the CarBuzz YouTube channel and download our app on iOS and Android, and check out our website for the latest and greatest in automotive news and car reviews just like this one. Hope you've enjoyed the video. See you next time.